Wallace will. Good evening and welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the February 20th, 2018 meeting of the Downers Grove Village Council. It is my pleasure to call this meeting to order. There are copies of our agenda on either side of the room, and if you haven't already picked one up, please do so, because you can follow along with our proceedings tonight. There will be multiple opportunities for public comment, both with respect to items that are on tonight's agenda, as well as a segment that is under item 5, which is reserved for public comments of a general nature. And anyone wishing to ask a question or make a comment of a general nature with respect to something not on tonight's agenda, the protocol at that time is to please come up, tell us who you are, and we'd welcome hearing from you. But first, it is our proud custom to begin our meetings by reciting the Pledge of Allegiance. So I'd like to ask everyone present to please rise and join us in reciting the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much for joining us. And with that, I would like to ask our fine village clerk, April Holden, to please call the roll.
Commissioner Wallace?
Here.
Commissioner Earl?
Here.
Commissioner Waldeck?
Here.
Commissioner White?
Here.
Commissioner Jose?
Here.
Commissioner Barnett?
Here.
Mayor Tully?
Here. Thank you very much. That brings us to item 3, which pertains to our approval of minutes from past meetings. We have one set of minutes to review and approve tonight. Those are our meeting minutes from our regular Village Council meeting of February 13th, 2018. If there are no changes, corrections, comments, or concerns, I will ask for a motion to approve those minutes, please.
Mayor Tully, I move that this council approve the meeting minutes from February 13th, 2018 as presented.
Second.
All of those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. The ayes have it, and the minutes are approved. That brings us to item 4, which is a very special item that we only have once a year. So those of you who are in the audience are going to be treated to something very special, and that is our annual report. So every year the village does an annual report looking back on the prior year in this case being 2017, highlighting things that happened as well as accomplishments of the Village of Downers Grove. And this is also sometimes known as the State of the Village Address, which is something that coming on the day after President's Day I think is quite appropriate, because the tradition of a chief executive officer giving a State of the Village or State of the Union or State of the County or State of the State address dates back to George Washington. Although originally the custom was something that was delivered in writing by the chief executive officer, George Washington, and subsequent presidents to the legislature. And years later, it became a verbal tradition. Well, tonight we're going to mix both verbal and written presentation as well as visual interest and utilizing our amazing whiz-bang video developers here we have at Village Hall, which we'll be touching on later, to kick off the 2017 annual report, otherwise known as the State of the Village Address. And then I will be sharing some of those highlights with you. But first, let's go to the video, as they say. Now that piece of excellent work is put together by our very own Chris Durlow and Janine Cerulli, and they did a really fabulous job with this video. And in fact, as I'll be talking about a little bit later, some of the videos that they've done for the village on various topics have received recognition through the form of various awards, but we'll touch upon that a little bit later. That's just a teaser. So the 2017 annual report, as I mentioned, highlights the accomplishments and significant measurable results for the last year. The achievements support the village's long-range plan goals, of which fall into roughly 6 different categories. 1, sustainability, but not just sustainability financially, but also sustainability of our environment and our traditions. Number 2, high-quality municipal services. Number 3, economic development, robust economic development. Number 4, infrastructure. Number 5, innovation. And number 6, leadership. These are the general 6 categories that our long-range long-range plan goals fall into. And this year, again, in a new and very impressive way to engage with the community and summarize in a magazine format, you saw it featured in the video. The 2017 annual report actually comes in a magazine format, which is extremely creative, very engaging. It even has little things that fall out, like in a real magazine, each of which highlights an important aspect of some of the services that you get from your community in Village Hall. So I would certainly encourage everyone to pick up the magazine and follow along with what the village has done in 2017. It would be very difficult to go over everything that we've experienced in 2017, so I'm only going to hit some highlights in the State of the Village address. But one thing I would encourage and always encourage folks to do is if you go on the village website, there is a category called Top Stories, and it keeps chronologically all the top stories throughout the year. And if you literally follow through that in chronological order, you get a pretty good summary of the major events and accomplishments in the village of Downers Grove throughout the entire year. Don't worry, I'm not going to go through all of them. There are far more than time permits. But I do want to talk about some things. Well, first and foremost, I should advance the slide because I just talked about the magazine. And now let's talk about the Village Council, because the accomplishments in 2017 could not have been done without teamwork. And I want to quote Andrew Carnegie, who said that teamwork is the ability to work together towards a common vision, the ability to direct individual accomplishments towards organizational objectives. It is the fuel that allows common people to attain uncommon results. And I want to thank my colleagues here in the Village Council, Commissioner Jose, Commissioner Waldeck, Commissioner Wallace, Commissioner White, Commissioner Earl, and Commissioner Barnett for working together as a team, both as individuals, but for the common collective good of the village and the village organization, along with staff and members of the community. Without all of you working together, we could not accomplish the things that I will highlight today. So I want to recognize my colleagues and thank them for their leadership as well. So let's get right into it then. I mentioned one of the categories of our long-term goals was sustainability. Sustainability, of course, is normally thought of as a financial issue, and 2017 was no different when it came to finances. Well, I'm very proud to say that 2017, the Village of Downers Grove once again maintained a balanced budget. And it may sound like that's not a big deal, but if you look around you at other levels of government, it really is a big deal because the village is very proud of having a balanced budget every year. Quite frankly, we don't have any choice. We need to have a balanced budget because we need to do things like have our first responders able to provide public safety services, and when the snow falls, we have to plow it. We can't delay because of disagreements that may take place in other forums. 2017 saw the village cut expenses by $1.3 million. Now that's also something you probably don't hear in many other forums, is that we actually reduced expenses. Now why did we reduce expenses? Yes, in large part we had to, because of 2 things that impacted the village, not uniquely, because this is something that impacts other units of government as well. But number 1, a continued reduction in sales tax revenue. The economy is changing, as I'll talk about a little bit later. People are buying things online rather than brick and mortar stores, and so a major component of our revenue stream, sales tax revenue, is something that is suffering, but we are not alone in that regard. The other major impact was the state of Illinois withholding approximately 10% of our share of the state income tax revenue that ordinarily we would get. So we had to do more with less, and I'm very proud to say that with staff's leadership and your support, we were able to do that once again. It is something, as I'll touch upon later, that's very difficult to continue to do, and therefore we're going to have to be innovative in our approaches of doing something different, because it is not going to be feasible to continue to reduce costs to reduce costs in the face of declining revenues. The other thing I want to report in this regard is the village once again received a successful independent audit of its finances with no management letter comments. This is also very important. I remember maybe 10, 15 years ago, there used to be management letter comments, and it's something that we have not experienced for some time, which is a tribute to good, solid financial management and our finance department. Thank you for all their work. In 2017, we refunded the downtown tax increment financing bonds to reduce expenses by over $120,000 annually. This is something that we take advantage of whenever we can. The village does issue long-term bonds for purposes of doing various projects such as capital projects. And because of our AAA bond rating, one of the things that we are able to do is take advantage of refinancing these bonds, which reduces the overall cost, meaning that's less public dollars that we have to spend on these projects. So that's always a good thing. And as I mentioned, the village is very proud to have a AAA bond rating, which we retained in 2017. We are one of only 23 municipalities in the state of Illinois that enjoy a AAA bond rating. By comparison, I think the city of Chicago has no bond rating or something like that. So it's something that we work very hard to sustain for the reason I mentioned, is it allows us opportunities to save money on the bonds that we issue for capital projects. Moving right along, we also keep an eye open for opportunities to get grants, to obtain grants in order to pay for some of the things that we do, and 2017 was no different. I just want to touch upon a few grants that we were able to obtain this past year. In total, we received $900,000 in grants that helped us purchase things such as a new Jaws of Life, which if you look at them pictured there, you can appreciate how powerful they are, but also new bulletproof vests for our police officers. It's important that we are vigilant with respect to grant opportunities, because these are your dollars that we want to make sure come back to your community. So we work very hard to identify opportunities to obtain these grants and bring them back to Downers Grove for things such as public safety equipment. Those of you that use the Main Street Station probably will recall that it was recently refurbished with respect to the floor. You'll be glad to know that grants help to pay for that new floor in the Main Street train station. The historic Main Street train station, which as I'll mention a little bit later, is one of our landmark structures here in Downers Grove. And speaking of historic things, those $900,000 of grants that we obtained last year also helped to produce 4 historic preservation brochures. That's a nice transition to another form of sustainability. Financial sustainability is obviously very important for the village of Downers Grove, but we also seek to sustain our rich culture and heritage. As you probably know, Downers Grove's motto is that we preserve the balance between tradition and progress. And we're very proud that the historic landmarking program that has been undertaken in Downers Grove had a landmark year, as they say. 9 structures were landmarked in 2017 alone, bringing the total number of structures now landmarked and receiving that protection in the village of Downers Grove to 20. That is truly terrific. One in particular I have to highlight. 2017 saw the village of Downers Grove voluntarily working with the homeowners landmark Pierce Downers' home. Yes, as you can imagine, prior to 2017, Pierce Downers' home was not protected. And we're very proud to say that now it is. Can you imagine if the namesake of our village's home, historic home, were no longer with us? That would truly be a tragedy. So it's something we're very, very proud of, and we're glad to see that happen. The landmarking program continues apace. I understand there are 2 more homes that are currently in the pipeline for landmarking that will come before the Village Council soon, and we look forward to that. The success of this program is truly the beneficiary of, and a prime example of, public-private, not-for-profit partnerships. We have to thank both the Friends of the Edwards House for their preservation efforts and helping people realize the importance and the benefits of landmarking. And also our thanks goes out to the Downers Grove Historical Society for their historic home recognition program, which helps people understand why it's important and why it's key for us to celebrate historic preservation in Downers Grove. And the village itself added to that mix by producing a video. You'll hear the video theme is going to be very strong tonight, highlighting the many of Sears catalog homes that the village of Downers Grove enjoys. So we're very proud of that. Let me move on then to economic development in a couple of different ways. First of all, there's an old saying that if you fail to plan, you plan to fail. And 2017 saw the village of Downers Grove revisit and update its award-winning comprehensive plan. Why did we revisit it? Because a comprehensive plan is something that should be revisited, and we try to do that every 5 years. And 2017 was approximately when it was time for it to be updated. This council and staff, along with the community, worked very hard to tweak, revise, and update our comprehensive plan, which provides a basis for the vision of our community long term. This one focused on both historic preservation as well as economic development, which, as I'll get to in a moment, is very critical for our long-term sustainability. And in about 5 years, another council perhaps will be revisiting this comprehensive plan and updating it. We definitely want to stay on schedule to do that approximately every 5 years. 2017 saw many economic development wins, a number of which we're very proud of. The first one I want to talk about is the expansion and new building that is being constructed right now over in the Ellsworth Industrial Park by Rexnord. Their new aeronautical engineering headquarters, all 240,000 square feet of it, are currently under construction. This both brings jobs to our community, retains jobs in our community, and also the ancillary benefits of where those employees will shop and where they will dine, also supporting other businesses in our community. Why was this such a significant economic win for the village of Downers Grove, DuPage County, and the state of Illinois? It's because Rexnord was being courted, not just by other communities, but by other states. And the village of Downers Grove was in competition with, for example, the state of Florida, which was providing incentives for Rexnord to relocate there. But Rexnord wanted to stay here in Downers Grove, but we needed to figure out how to make that economically viable for them to do so in the face of such incentives being offered by other states. So the village of Downers Grove versus other states was something you might think we were on the losing end of. But no, we were able to think out of the box and work with our partners at District 58 and District 99 to come up with a package that made it very attractive for Rexnord to stay here and reinvest in Downers Grove, which was such a big economic development win for our area that DuPage County Chairman Dan Cronin, in his State of the County address recently, highlighted the Rexnord project as a win for all of DuPage County. So we are very thankful to our partners at District 99 and District 58 for working with us in order to achieve this significant accomplishment. It's something that we hope to be able to replicate in the future for the benefit of the entire community. A few other economic development projects that we facilitated that I want to highlight really quickly in 2017 was that the Village of Downers Grove approved an agreement that is being undertaken on a project by Vequity. Redevelopment, as you may have seen, on the northwest corner of Ogden and Main in Downers Grove. This will be a brand new restaurant and retail center that should be open in August. Yes, we hope. If you will recall, that corner was a little bit challenged, also a gateway to our community, so we're very glad to see that project being undertaken. Needless to say, that was a very challenging agreement, which is a testament to the persistence of our economic development efforts here in Downers Grove, but also the creativity with which we pursue things. I dare say that this may not have worked in some other places at other times, but your village council believes in robust economic development because it is important to grow our base so we don't have to increase our rates. Another great win was Pugi Mazda. We extended an agreement with the Village of Downers Grove to expand and remodel their Mazda dealership. As I mentioned, sales tax is a big part of our revenue stream that supports our operations here at the village, and the sale of automobiles on Ogden Avenue and elsewhere is an important part of that. So while there are changes in the global macroeconomic environment with respect to purchasing of cars, we still are working very hard to keep those auto sales here in Downers Grove. So agreements like this are very important to maintaining our revenue streams. Similarly, we were also able to attract, through entering into an agreement, a new Lincoln certified pre-owned dealership on Ogden Avenue. And some of you may have been asking about the building that was at 5117 Main Street, which was vacant for a long time. That was owned by the village. Once upon a time was going to be part of the Acadia on the Green development, but it was not included for various reasons at that time. And the village finally sold that building, and we're glad to say it will be the new home, after being restored and remodeled, of the Great Harvest Bread Company. So we're glad to see another new business coming to Downers Grove. As long as we're talking about economic development, I really have to pause here and not only thank our staff, which continues to respond to greater and greater challenges for how to make square pegs fit into round holes when it comes to economic development, but also the Downers Grove Economic Development Corporation. They are an integral part of this process, working with both the community and village staff to make some of these big economic development wins occur. So we're grateful for their participation and their board of directors that really helps move this along. I also mentioned infrastructure as one of our big goals, and 2017 saw continued investment by the village in infrastructure. What do I mean by that? I mean the basics. You can see the things that are made of asphalt, concrete, and iron. I think that was my garage band in high school. That was the name of it. Just kidding. 2017 saw the Village of Downers Grove invest over $10 million in stormwater, street, sidewalk, and water systems. This is something that we need to do every year to maintain our systems. Obviously, we're a community that was founded in 1832. Things that we build eventually have to be replaced, so constant reinvestment on that scale in our community is essential. The village continues to strive to maintain modern infrastructure at the lowest life cycle costs. Municipal services are another thing that I mentioned, along with innovation. And 2017 saw the village continue to find new ways to deliver services to residents by leveraging technology and thinking outside the box and being innovative. A few examples. 2017, the village launched a new Community Resources Center app, because now everything, of course, is done on this. So why wouldn't we want to be there and be responsive to you as well? This new app allows residents to submit and track service requests, receive updates, and make payments from their mobile devices. A new and better way, a more modern way for residents to interact with their village government. It also works for parking. You may recall in the old days, if you had guests that were parking overnight on a street, which is not normally allowed, or you had your driveway resurfaced and you had to park on the street, you have to pick up the phone and call the non-emergency number and tell the police department, please don't ticket me because I need to have overnight parking. Well, no more. Now you can also do that on your smart device. We launched a web-based overnight parking request system, either through your computer or through your phone, that allows residents to obtain overnight on-street parking permission from any mobile device or computer. The village's leadership and innovation is something that we like to celebrate here in Downers Grove because we should. But it's also nice to know that from time to time we receive recognition from outside of the village, both regionally and on a national level. And I just want to touch upon a few of the awards that the village received in 2017 because we should celebrate our accomplishments and our leadership in this regard. We'll go back to finance for a minute. The village once again received the Government Finance Officers Association Distinguished Budget Award. This is the 5th straight year in a row that the village has received this award. Also, the village received an award for excellence in financial reporting for the 6th straight year. Once again, this is a real testament to our outstanding financial services department here in the village, making sure that we're doing things the way they should be done, and it's really nice to know that that gets recognized by those organizations that know what they're talking about when it comes to government finances. The videos. We've talked about videos tonight. You saw one of the outstanding videos that are produced here in the village by Chris and Janine. The opening video that you saw that featured the Inside DG magazine is done in-house here at the village. And one of the other series of videos that were done recently and received an award in 2017 was, you may recall, the series of videos with respect to the stormwater utility. Back when the village was providing education to residents about what the stormwater utility was, what it was used for, and whether folks wanted to pay for stormwater costs through a stormwater utility or through property taxes. In 2017, the village received a 3CMA Savvy Award for Outstanding Public Education for the Stormwater Utility video series, and well-deserved, I might add. A few others I want to mention. The village also, the American Heart Association Mission Lifeline Gold Status Award was given to our first responders for treatment of heart attack patients. And DUMEG, the DuPage Metropolitan Enforcement Group, presented the Director's Award to Officer Andres Cardenas for wide-scale undercover investigations in 2017. Not to be outdone, the fire department also received an award. Our very own outstanding, amazing Marcia Giesler, everyone knows Marcia, was awarded the Dr. Ann Phillips Award for Leadership in Fire Safety Education, which was presented by the Congressional Fire Services Institute and the International Fire Training Association. Thank you, Marcia, for all that you do. Well-deserved recognition. Back to our police department. The 100 Club of DuPage County presented the Award of Valor. They give one award every year to first responders in DuPage County who have exemplified public service, bravery, in a very difficult situation. And this year, 3 of our firefighter paramedics here in Downers Grove, Quinn Triplett, Scott Sohn, and Andy Hoff, received an award of valor from the 100 Club of DuPage County for their brave response in responding to a very deadly house fire. We really appreciate their bravery in that regard. And even though it's not in the slides because he's too modest to do it, I would be remiss if I didn't point out that 2017 also saw our very own village manager, Dave Fieldman, receive the 2017 Governmental Leader of the Year Award from the DuPage Mayors and Managers Conference. If you were able to or desired to go back and look at the list of folks who have won this award in the past, you would quickly recognize that it's quite a distinguished honor and well-deserved that Dave would receive that award from his peers in DuPage County. As I mentioned, the village continues to think of new ways to be innovative and reach out and communicate and engage with its residents. We are always looking at new ways to connect. The magazine is just one of them. The video is another one. And it seems like every year we come up with another way to bridge the gap and allow residents to stay up with village news and information and provide new ways to connect our community with their village government. Because as mentioned, it really is a team effort, and we can't do it without you. We're always looking for ways to have you help us help you. So to sort of wrap things up, since this is sometimes known as the State of the Village Address, I always get a question from the media. So, Mayor Tully, what is the state of the village? And it seems like I've been saying the same thing for 7 years, but it's true. The state of the village is strong. We are well poised to take advantage of opportunities, and we are also well positioned to respond and resist challenges that face us. What do I mean by that? Well, Rexnord was an opportunity, and because of relationships that we had built and because of a culture we had developed, we were able to take advantage of that opportunity and beat out entire other states to keep that business here in Downers Grove and see it reinvest in our community. We are well poised to take advantage of other opportunities like that. But we are also well positioned to be resilient in the face of challenges. And as I mentioned earlier, we do face challenges and will continue to face challenges. We haven't increased our property tax levy for operations in 7 years. That's a remarkable feat, but it's not one that is sustainable, and you've heard me say that before. So how we face that year after year after year is going to continue to be a challenge for both this council and future councils. The impact of the state of Illinois on our revenues. I mentioned that last year saw us experience a 10% decrease in a revenue stream that otherwise would have come to this village because of actions of the state of Illinois. We've already heard talk about future challenges to things like our share of the local government distributive fund. That the state, in an effort to try to balance its financial woes, may once again dip back into the pockets of municipalities. We will face that challenge again, and we need to continue to be vigilant both by ourselves and in conjunction with other municipalities in order to push back against that. I mentioned changes in the economy. Vehicles, for example. The purchasing of vehicles is changing. More and more folks are using ride-sharing services. Autonomous vehicles are starting to appear in towns like Mountain View, California, and Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Will the sale of cars go away? Of course not, but there will be fewer of them, and that means declining sales tax revenue for municipalities like Downers Grove. As more and more folks shop online and have things delivered by Amazon, for example, the challenge to the brick and mortar stores and big boxes that for many years provided robust revenue streams to municipalities, that's changing. And your village is going to have to change and stay ahead of the curve in order to anticipate those changes. So those challenges face us, plus the fact that every other municipality is facing the same challenges and is heavy, intense competition with the village of Downers Grove for the resources that still remain. So we will face those challenges as well as our to-do list. And we have a number of things still on our to-do list, such as what else can we do to better address stormwater challenges here in Downers Grove? Today is a day where we were all well reminded of what stormwater can do. And our topography here in Downers Grove, as well as our soil content, makes that a big challenge. The village will continue to talk about ways to improve its response to rain events, and I don't mean response in getting out with emergency vehicles, but what can we do to better manage stormwater within our means here in the village of Downers Grove? Infrastructure continues to be a challenge. As mentioned, we do invest heavily in infrastructure, but all things suffer from entropy, and we will continue to have to find sources of revenue to invest in our infrastructure. Economic development will continue to be a challenge for the competitive reasons that I mentioned. And yes, we will eventually have to revisit the topic of facilities, such as what to do with the building that we're sitting in, as well as our police department. So these challenges still face the village, but I know that this council and future councils are well positioned to deal with them in the future, particularly in conjunction with the fine residents of Downers Grove. So we look forward to 2018 and beyond, working with you, the residents of Downers Grove, to continue to tackle all these challenges and take advantage of opportunities. Because, once again, it really is all about working together. And I will now quote Henry Ford, who said that coming together is a beginning. Keeping together is progress. Working together is success. The last year has been a success of our working together, and I'm confident that 2018 and beyond will continue to see success if all of us continue to work together. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for your rapt attention. That concludes the 2017 annual report, otherwise known as the State of the Village. Thank you. And with that, we will move to item 5, which is reserved for public comments. As mentioned earlier, if there are any members of the audience that have any questions or comments of a general nature with respect to things that are not on tonight's agenda, please come to the podium, introduce yourself, and we'd welcome hearing from you. Good evening.
Mayor Tully, Commissioners, thank you. Pastor Scott Oberly at First Congregational United Church of Christ. Thank you. It was inspiring to hear all the things that have happened the past year. I don't wish to darken the mood at all, but I did want to bring a topic that affects not only us locally, but nationally and on the state level. Over 3 years ago, I was stunned when I heard over the radio that a gunman had walked into Newtown Primary School and shot and killed 26 and 7-year-old children, along with 6 of their teachers. As we were preparing for Advent and Christmas in the church, having a vigil for children and their parents as they said goodbye to those that they loved most was a great challenge and difficulty and agonizing. As I looked at my own daughters, who I brought with me tonight, imagining us packing their lunches and them going to school to learn their ABCs, and that these children were my daughter's age. Everyone in this room heard the news last week of another shooting in Parkland, Florida, where again, high school students, 17 of them and their faculty, were killed by a former student, using an AR-15 assault rifle. And since the days of Columbine, what at my high school days seemed unthinkable has seemed to become a regular occurrence in our communal life in 2018 in the United States of America. I can't accept this as a normative thing, and I hope that you can't either. Nor will I sit and listen to news and wring my hands and do nothing. If Christ is my model, it calls me to his peace, to care for those on the margins, and to bring compassion and love in the face of brutality and violence in our world and in our nation and in our communities, then I have my own marching orders. This week I contacted the chief of police and the police department to see if they would be open to participating. And I'm asking if you would consider, as members of the village council, to provide a community forum or space to address areas that concern many, I am sure, of our citizens. My hope is that the forum could focus on 3 areas. The first would be informational for our general public at large. In our community, what are we doing for at-risk people, those with mental disability or behavioral health concerns that may be in need of extra mental health resources in our schools, our churches, or our community at large? Many of these mass shootings have come from people who have shown signs of risk and have, as a piece of information through counselors or different venues, shown flags that have made them mark up as markers on some of the public awareness that has been involved with them. Secondly, what are we not doing for those who are in our community who may be slipping through the cracks, whether through reduction of state or local resources, and what can we do collectively to ensure that those who are trending towards isolation might be better cared for collectively? Second, I engaged the sheriff and our local police department to see if our law enforcement officers and our emergency responders who put their lives at risk every day don't know what they're walking into when they make a routine traffic stop or a domestic violence house call, what they might encounter, if they have some common sense suggestions and some recommendations, whether at the local level or as a community, that we can also bring to the state level. That might be a host of things, and I'm not here to make all suggestions or pretend that I have all the answers, whether that's engaging gun manufacturers or the level degree of weaponry that's available to the public. And I saw that the executive branch made some measures towards that today, which makes me hopeful that maybe there is some movement in this action. I wish to be clear that in no way am I suggesting that citizens should not have the right to bear arms, to a handgun or a rifle for hunting or protecting their home or recreational use. I grew up with that in my home as a child and with my grandparents. But I think there are questions as to military-grade weapons and should they be readily accessible to the public. We might not be able to affect all these changes here at the local level, but as I think of my own children and every resident that I share communal life with here in Downers Grove and the surrounding areas, I ask myself, how many times does it have to happen before we take seriously that it could happen here? Which I know that each of you do. It is true that we could do this just as faith communities, but this touches every person and affects our common life together. And in my humble opinion, it's our shared responsibility as citizens, regardless of your race, creed, politics, or religious affiliation. I'm here to hope to build partnerships with you in our community and with our civic leaders. And so I ask you tonight and beyond this evening to deliberate. I know you are all very busy and take very seriously your role and responsibilities as elected officials for our city. And I want to thank you for your service, which is very evident here tonight in hearing the annual report, and for hearing me this evening. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Pastor Oberle. I'm always impressed by your passion for whatever the topic might be, and thank you for displaying and sharing that once again. It's always a pleasure to have you here. Clearly, tragic events like this are in the forefront of the mind frames of many throughout the nation and the world, in fact, and Downers Grove is no different. We do get questions about this. What if this were to happen in one of our schools? I even had folks reach out to me about whether our faith-based organizations are well situated to handle situations like this, because we've all heard about horrible occurrences like this in that setting as well. So it is something that I want to let you know that even before the terrible events that took place in Florida, we have had conversations with faith-based organizations here in Downers Grove who are looking to be themselves better prepared and situated for what to do should the unthinkable happen in your environment. And I know that, and I'm confident that our first responders here, Chief Gillette, who I'm sure you spoke to, and others, is equally concerned and responsive in that regard. With respect to our high schools and our grade schools, without going into detail that I can't, we do obviously have active shooter drills and other things to do the most we can to prepare for the unthinkable, and are in constant partnership, as mentioned earlier, with our schools and other organizations here in town that might potentially be put in harm's way should something like that happen. So we do take that very seriously. I mentioned earlier that failure to plan is a plan to fail. I'll leave it at this, that for going way back, and it's too bad that we have to go that far back. There are, in fact, plans and preparations, and there are communications that do take place, and it's something that we want to assure the residents that that is on the forefront of everyone's mind. And not just working here in Downers Grove, but also working with the DuPage County Sheriff's Office and the other resources that are available regionally beyond just Downers Grove, because it is not something that stops at the borders of one community or another. It is truly something that transcends all communities, and so we all need to work together, as I mentioned in the 2017 annual report, to really make a difference. So even since the horrible events in Florida, members of the community have reached out to us already about what can be done, what else can be done, what education can be provided. So that is certainly something that I know my colleagues and I are all open to working with the community to see what we might be able to do, or at least talk about, if nothing else, as a community in the face of such horrible, tragic events. But certainly there's probably more that could be said, and we'll be happy to do that. So thank you for sharing those words with us tonight, and thank you for everyone else who attended to show support.
And please don't take my leaving as an insult, but I think these guys did that.
I won't take it as an insult. In fact, I would consider it a form of punishment if you made them stay and listen to me for the rest of the night.
Mayor, may I?
Yes,
Pastor,
Commissioner
I'd like
Waldeck.
to warn you that I'm going to call you tomorrow and have a discussion. Thank you.
Wonderful, thank you.
Yes, and actually, I think I know where Commissioner Waldeck is going with that.
Yes, you do.
Yes, we have had for many years a Human Services Commission, and we're in the midst of reconstituting it. And some of the things that you mentioned might very well be grounds for projects or undertakings that commission could pursue. So I think you will be getting a phone call.
Yes.
Thank you, Pastor. Other questions or comments of a general nature from members of the audience, please? Good evening. Welcome.
I'm Janet Kriz, 4633 Drendel. Last Thursday, February 15th, I learned that Public Works planned to install sidewalks on the 4600 block of Drendel, south of Indianapolis and north of the Belmont Prairie. Previous discussions of sidewalks in this area had never suggested that they would extend south of Indianapolis. A neighbor and I went door to door to learn our neighbors' feelings about sidewalks. We were able to talk to residents in 10 of 17 homes. 14 residents representing 9 households signed a petition asking the village to exempt us from the requirement of a sidewalk on every street. Our block is a clearly marked dead end. There's very little traffic, either vehicular or pedestrian, so a sidewalk would be little used. Most visitors to the Belmont Prairie prefer to enter from the parking lot on Cross. Most pedestrians going to the Belmont Station take Cross, since there are no residences on Ogden west of Cross. Adding sidewalks would destroy the rustic feel of the neighborhood. The proposed sidewalks imperil root systems of large established trees. The village has previously exempted at least one neighborhood from the sidewalk requirement. Please exempt our block as well.
Thank you. I wasn't sure if you were finished. I did want to be impolite. Thank you for sharing that, and we did appreciate you coming to coffee with the council this past Saturday and allowing us to have a discussion about this. We'll certainly take that into consideration, and it's obviously something that we want to make sure that we have a conversation with the entire neighborhood about, because we've heard from your neighbors. So thank you for sharing the additional voices with us. And if you have a petition and
Yes.
want to share it with us, and if I could ask you to be so kind as to give a copy to Mr. Baker there, and he'll make sure that it's made part of the record and shared with the rest of the village council.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much for being here tonight.
Can I also address the issue, and I'll try not to be repetitive and make it very quick?
Please, welcome.
Okay. My name is Joellen Siddons, and I'm a retired ecologist, and I live in this very block of Drendel. I've been there for 36 years. I appreciate that Downers Grove is addressing the drainage issues there with reasonable solutions. I was also at the meeting at Public Works, especially given the restrictions that are in place because of Belmont Prairie being an Illinois State Nature Preserve. I also think it's wise to bundle construction projects, as you're doing, for road rebuilding, storm sewer installment, and sidewalk construction. Okay, but fine-tuning, and we were directed to the village council for this particular issue. For me, there's no issue of not on my side of the street, because construction of sidewalk would be on the opposite side of the road from our property. So not an issue there. I do take issue with having a village template for sidewalk planning and construction. The one-size-fits-all approach is not reasonable for this last block of Drendel, which runs, as Jan said, south and dead ends at the north boundary of Belmont Prairie. it's not really an issue of we will build it, they will come. It's more potentially possibly building a bridge to nowhere. There's very little foot or vehicular traffic on this block, and a visit to the area would demonstrate the rural character of the area immediately surrounding the prairie, and the need to preserve its context as an historical site, and that's a nod to the village's interest in both cultural and natural heritage. There are many, many people over the years that have stated in wonder that Downers Grove was able to preserve a little piece of geographic and natural heritage. The proposal to construct an additional sidewalk corridor running uphill east to Cross Street to connect seems even more unreasonable than on the Drendel block. This would eliminate the naturalized easement buffer adjacent to the prairie's north boundary. I know there will be a storm sewer run there, and with great trepidation, it's going to have to be buried because it's a slope and they've got to connect. The wooded buffer provides a visual screen which enhances the experience for prairie visitors, both for educational groups and for individuals who want to gain some sense of what the Illinois prairie landscape is like. It also serves as a buffering portion of land, granted, very small, which contributes to the greater picture of holding water on site for the prairie and for the surrounding area. A concrete strip of sidewalk running downhill with mowed turf on either side exacerbates the runoff situation. I'm convinced that this particular section of sidewalk corridor would receive no maintenance throughout the year. No mowing, no snow shoveling, and it would be a waste of village and or individual property owner resources to do so. Thank you.
Thank you very much for sharing that with us tonight. Other questions or comments of a general nature from members of the audience? Good evening, welcome.
Thank you. Liz Chalbert with the Downers Grove Historical Society. The Historic Home Program, which you referred to in your opening remarks, is a partnership between the Downers Grove Historical Society and the Downers Grove Museum. As such, we want to continue helping homeowners of historic properties learn more about their properties, do research, help them appreciate what they own and enhance it if they possibly can. As part of that program, we have 4 educational programs coming up in 2018, and I wanted to let everybody know about them in advance, and you're going to see more about them on our website in the future. The first one is coming up right away on the 28th of this month, and it is already, I think we've got like a couple of extra seats available, but it's already sold out. That is coming up on February 28th at Emmett's. You can have dinner there, purchase your dinner, and listen to Sarah Stasuskowitz, who she used to be the curator at our museum. She moved on to the Orland Park area, but she is coming back to provide a presentation on how to research the history of your home, and we're looking forward to seeing her back and providing that presentation on the 28th of this month. Then on April 24th at Avery Coonley at 6:30 in the evening, we will be having Nina Kozio, who is a teacher of garden design and horticulture at Morton Arboretum and Chicago Botanical Gardens, come and provide the presentation of American Home Garden Design 1830 to present. This might help homeowners of historic homes landscape their homes and see their landscaping plan as part of the overall design element for their historic home. Then in late July, we still have date and time to be determined, we will be having Doug Gilbert, who you might remember Doug as one of the consultants who worked with the village on the 2013 building survey. He will be providing a presentation about architectural styles in Downers Grove. And then finally, in the latter portion of the year, in November sometime, we'll be having a Sears Kit Home presentation by Lara Saloniki of Sears Homes of Chicagoland. So we've got a really nice roster of presentations coming up. We hope the public will enjoy them and sign up for them, and they will be on our websites very soon. Thanks so much.
Thank you very much for sharing that with us, Ms. Chalberg. Other questions or comments from members of the audience with respect to things that are not on tonight's agenda? Very well. Hearing no further, I just want to thank everyone who did share questions or comments of a general nature with us. We always appreciate seeing you. We will now move on to item 6 on our agenda tonight, which is our consent agenda. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented?
Mayor Tully, I move that this council approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
Are there any questions or comments from any members of the audience with respect to any of the items on tonight's consent agenda? Questions or comments from any members of the Village Council? Seeing none, may I have a roll call, please?
Commissioner White?
Aye.
Commissioner Waldeck?
Aye.
Commissioner Wallace?
Aye.
Commissioner Earl? Aye. Commissioner Jose?
Aye.
Commissioner Barnett?
Aye.
Mayor Tully?
Aye. The consent agenda passes unanimously, and that brings us to item 7, which is our active agenda. As we have no items under our active agenda tonight, we will go lickety-split to our first reading, which is item 8. This is the workshop or less formal portion of tonight's meeting, where items are presented for discussion and presentation and questions purposes only. No final actions will be taken at this time. I will talk long enough to allow Mr. Baker to switch the presentation materials to Mr. Popovich's slides. We have 3 items on tonight's first reading or workshop agenda. The tradition is to ask our our award-winning village manager to introduce the items either through himself or through a member of our fine village staff. So with that, I will turn things over to Village Manager Dave Fieldman.
Thank you, Mayor Tully. 3 items on tonight's first reading, really one discussion issue, and that will be presented by our Community Development Director, Stan Popovich.
Good evening, Mr. Popovich.
Mayor.
I seem to recall somebody being featured in this magazine. Somebody who looks an awful lot like you.
Do I look like... Can I borrow the clicker from you?
Can you borrow the clicker? I'm not giving that back.
I will gladly take a seat if you'd like.
Be careful what you ask for.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. As Manager Fieldman noted, the 3 items on the first reading tonight are a special use amendment, planned unit development amendment, and platted subdivision for 2001 63rd Street, better known as the Meadowbrook Shopping Center. The shopping center is on the west side of town on 63rd Street. We can see an aerial here of the shopping center outlined in red. There's a parcel that's within the shopping center that's not part of the shopping center. It is at the southwest corner of Woodward, which is on the right-hand side of the screen of 63rd Street. If we zoom in to the northeast corner of the site, which is the southwest corner of that, you'll see the former restaurant site there located. In August of last year, the council approved a plan to put about a 14,000 square foot Walgreens building on this parcel on the left-hand side. You can see the improvements there. Petitioners come back and requested a revision to the plan, which now moves the building closer to the intersection of Woodward and 63rd Street, and it's a slightly smaller building as well. So if we go into a little bit of detail with the plan here, you see the building in blue, a lot of green space that's being added. Some of the consistencies from the previous proposal was the reduction of the 2 full access curb cuts to a single 3/4 access point. So that is staying the same there. You'll see the parking to the left of the building, which is to the west of the building. The drive-through lane's been also relocated to the south side of the building, so folks will go counterclockwise to pick up their prescriptions that way. The service area, which provide delivery services behind a fence, or behind a wall, is located on the east side of the building there. The proposal also calls for an additional outlet, so that's the outlet that's in green. The petitioners are proposing to reseed that back to turf, so remove the existing pavements that's out there for the time being until a point where future development will come in. You'll also see there's a sidewalk along the north side of the building that connects to the intersection as well for pedestrian connections. This is the proposed elevation. This is the northwest corner of the building, so we're looking back to the east. So this is the west facade, that's the main facade there. You'll see on the left-hand side there's a fiber cement board. The right-hand side is fiber cement. And then there's an EIFS panel there, overhang where the Walgreens sign is as well. Windows, and then some different materials that are used with the fiber cement board to make them the fiber cement board, but then how it's clad is a little bit different on each of the sections there. So that's the overall appearance of the building from the main entrance. There's one request that staff is making and recommends. This is the proposed eastern elevation, which would face Woodward Avenue. This is what was proposed. You'll see the ephes overhang extending about maybe a third to a half of the way over from the intersection there, with then a fiber cement board, the brown tan going up to the roof line. What staff is requesting is that ephes extension come across the whole facade, so it appears more as a front facade when you're on Woodward itself. So staff's recommendation is to include this as a condition to extend the ephes overhang for the lower image there. And then what they're also requesting is a platted subdivision here, so you can see what they're requesting. They're requesting an outlot for the Walgreens in the northeast corner of the property, a subdivision for the outlot here, which would be a future development location, and then they are providing easements throughout so that people can lawfully traverse through the lots and get where they need to go. So that does provide access around the front of all the buildings and then through the main drive aisles in front of the buildings there. With regard to the comprehensive plan, 63rd Street's a focus area here, so they note that we should maintain commercial nodes, beautify and landscape the site, enhance access and accessibility. It's also a catalyst site. It's the largest development opportunity. Looks for outlot development and a visible and convenient shopping, which we think this provides for the shopping center here at this location. With regard to the standards, all the standards staff finds have been met for a PUD amendment, special use criteria and platted subdivision. With the previous approval in August, there were additional requirements that the shopping center itself be improved. Those conditions have been included in all the new ordinances as well. If there's any questions at this time, Mayor and council members, I can answer those for you as well. And our petitioners are here as well tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Popovich. Questions or comments from the members of the Village Council for either staff or the petitioner? Commissioner Earl, sorry, ladies first.
Go ahead. I just wanted to thank staff. I do agree that condition 6 is something that we should go with. So I would like to see that condition 6 with the build design feature across the back of the roof facing Woodward remain as well. So thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Barnett.
Thanks, Mayor. I agree with Commissioner Earl as well as the staff recommendation there. I had one other question similarly related that I don't need answered tonight, but I'm wondering if there would be a way to kind of replicate the north end of that east elevation on the south end, even if it were a bit faux, if you will. That north end appears to be offices that have that window space. Plan shows the south end is storage, off an electrical room. We probably wouldn't want real windows there, but trying to continue that look to create what appears to be a front facade of a building on a real key corner on an area we're specifically trying to get aesthetically improved. Whether or not that's possible is just something I guess I'd like folks to think through and see if they could find a way to do.
Thank you, Commissioner. Any other questions or comments from members of the council? Commissioner Waldeck.
Thank you, Mayor. I agree with the removal, from the Plan Commission of the number 9 restriction and kind of historical tonight. I can go along with number 6, which is actually an extension of ephes, and that's a first for me. But I think it's an aesthetic improvement, and I can go along with it. Thanks.
Thank you, Commissioner. Any other questions or comments from members of the council? Questions or comments from members of the audience? Or anything that the petitioner wants to add? No obligation. Entirely up to you. Hearing nothing from the audience. Anything further from members of the council? It was mentioned we're not deciding this tonight. Thank you for the presentation, and I know you'll be available for further questions and input as necessary. That then brings us to the next item on our first reading and workshop agenda, which is item 8B as in boy.
I believe all items have been presented. They were all related to 2001 63rd Street, Mayor. So
that's right, they are. I just wanted to hear more about it.
Unless there's anything else, that will conclude our first.
All right, that's items 8A, B, and C. Thank you very much. I was just trying to stave off the mayor's report. That brings us to item 9, which is the mayor's report, and I couldn't possibly add anything to what I said earlier today, so I will go right to item 10, which is the manager's report. Back to you, Mr. Fielden.
Thank you, Mayor. No additional report this evening.
Thank you. That brings us to item 11, our village attorney's report. Good evening, Ms. Petrarca.
Good evening, Mayor. 2 items to present this evening. The first is an ordinance approving amendment to Planning and Development Number 1 to to allow construction of a convenience store with a drive-through at 2001 63rd Street, and an ordinance authorizing an amendment to a special use for 2001 63rd Street to permit a convenience store with a drive-through. That is all, Mayor. Both items will be on the next active agenda.
Thank you very much. That brings us item 12, which is reserved for council member reports. This is an opportunity for members of the village council to share with the community and those here today, as well as watching at home, items of interest or other goings on in the community, or an ability to report out to the rest of the council with respect to anything that they may find pertinent in their role as liaisons to other boards or entities here in Downers Grove. So I will start with to my right tonight and ask Commissioner Jose if he has anything to report.
I do, Mayor. Thank you. Excuse me. Along with Mayor Tully and Manager Fieldman, I was at the Downers Grove Economic Development Corporation Executive Committee meeting this past Friday. We talked about several redevelopment opportunities on catalyst sites that could be very exciting. The Mission Barbecue held their grand opening for their restaurant in Finley Square. This is the first Illinois location for this national chain, and we're pretty excited about it. I haven't been there myself, but I'm hearing from folks that the food is really good, so I'm looking forward to checking it out. The Downers Grove Visitors Bureau excuse me, is part of the DuPage Convention and Visitors Bureau's new sports tourism program. They've retained a national sports tourism consulting firm to help develop a plan to attract more sports-related events to DuPage County, and we're looking forward to the benefits of that. The Downers Grove Economic Development Corporation annual luncheon is coming up on May the 11th at 11:30 a.m. at the Doubletree, and I know I'm looking forward to going. Oftentimes we get most, if not all, of the council. It's a great event, raises some money, and we get to hear about some pretty exciting projects that have happened in the community and some others that are in the pipeline. So, got some exciting stuff going on at the EDC, and I can't wait to see it all come to fruition. Thanks, Mayor.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Waldeck.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a quick one. As we enter the better weather, one of the prime events over the summer is are the car shows, and downtown management is looking for a few volunteers to help with parking type situations over the summer. If you are interested, please call them or first check the website downtowndg.org and get some information. Give them a call, and let's help keep the car shows a big family event. Thanks.
Thank you, Commissioner. I just want to underscore that point. I would really encourage folks who have enjoyed the car shows, Friday night car shows here in Downers Grove, to volunteer, or if you know of people who would be willing to volunteer, to please put them in touch with Downtown Management Corporation. Some folks may remember that about a year ago, maybe it was a year ago, there was some talk about maybe dialing back the car shows because of the lack of volunteers to help out. So if it is something that people continue to want to enjoy and appreciate, then this is an opportunity to, as I indicated these quotes earlier, work together to make sure that the community continue to enjoy what's become a real staple of our downtown during the summertime. So I just wanted to emphasize that, Commissioner. Thank you for bringing it up. Commissioner Wallace.
Thank you, Mayor. There are two opportunities to hear about the District 99 Master Facility Plan that will be on the March ballot. One is tomorrow night, February 21st, from 7 to 9 at Downers Grove South, and then there will be a presentation also at Downers Grove North. The following day, February 22nd, from 7 to 9. This also includes a tour as well. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Barnett.
Mayor, I have no report tonight.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Earl.
I would just like to thank Public Works. We have had a heck of a run with snow plowing, and more snow plowing in the last couple of weeks. And then on top of it, in some of the bitterest cold weather on no sleep and snow plowing, they were out down the block from me repairing a water main that had broken. And well done, because that's over and above and beyond in no sleep and bitter cold weather. And just want to thank those folks for being out there and doing what they do for us, even stuff that we don't always notice. So thanks to them.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner White.
I have no report this evening.
I do have one thing I want to add, and that is I want to remind everyone that the District 99 Education Foundation is holding its 5th annual Pizza Wars, which will be held on Thursday, March 1st, 2018 from 5:30 to 8 p.m. at the Downers Grove South High School Cafetorium, located at 1436 Norfolk Street in Downers Grove. You can buy your tickets today online for $10 or $15 at the door, so exercise some fiscal responsibility and buy those tickets online in advance. You can go to www.pizzawars.com. This is a terrific event that will pit a number of different pizzerias in the area. The vendors that will be featured at the 2018 Pizza Wars will be Nancy's Pizza in Woodridge, Papa's Pizza in Woodridge, Tortoise's Pizzeria in Downers Grove, a past winner, New York Pizza Pie in Downers Grove, Olive Theory Pizzeria in Downers Grove, L&F Pizza from Westmont, Woodgrain Neapolitan Pizzeria from Westmont, and then rounding it out with 2 more fine on Downers Grove pizzerias, Lou Malnati's Pizza and Scuttlebutts, of course. So you can determine who will be the 2018 winner of Pizza Wars for the best pizza in the area and support local education. So don't pass up the opportunity to have some za and support education on March 1st. Again, for more information, you can go to www.pizzawars.com. It's a great event. I look forward to seeing lots of our friends and neighbors there. It can get pretty darn crowded there, so if you want to taste some of the best slices, you might want to get there early. And that's all I have for my report. That brings us to item 13, which pertains to council member new business. We do have one item of new business tonight, and it is customary that the council member that initiated the item be given an opportunity to present it for discussion by the village council, and then any potential further direction that might be given to staff as a result. This item is brought to us tonight by Commissioner Greg Jose. So, Commissioner Jose, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mayor. I want to thank, first off, the council for allowing me to tease this for a couple of weeks. It's been on the agenda multiple times, and unfortunately was not called for different reasons. But glad to finally see it come forward tonight. On another level, it's actually kind of sad that we're even talking about this. The peer jury program was run by Downers Grove Township, which encompasses a lot of communities here in southeast DuPage, and by all accounts, it was really successful. It was apparently run very well. People that were involved with it, whether they were members of the peer jury itself or folks who had been offenders and gone through the program, all found it to be very helpful. It's a great diversionary program to keep folks out of the courtroom and allow restorative justice to not only bring closure to the community, but also to the victim and the offender in that situation, and allow for growth in a way that simply punishing somebody would not. Unfortunately, the program was jettisoned by the township at what seemed to be the first sign of trouble. After 6 months or so of watching them, for lack of a better term, flail around in different attempts to potentially restart it after a lot of community outcry, after a lot of folks that were interested in rolling up their sleeves and getting involved, including even raising money to help fund the program, still there's been no progress. It seems folks over there are more interested in political cover than getting the project up and running. So after watching it for a while, I decided I was tired of simply watching it and wanted to take a few steps and see if we could get it going again. I reached out to Commissioner Barnett. We reached out collaboratively to folks that were involved with the peer jury program and decided to try to bring this new business item forward. Looking for the concurrence of our colleagues to research some options to see if we can put this back together. There's been a draft budget proposed by the individual that used to run the program for the township, but obviously we want to find out ways we might be able to improve it, ways we might be able to make it more efficient. Maybe there's a better mousetrap out there, and if so, we should try to find it. But in the meantime, we do have a pretty good template for what the project is, what the program is, and how it worked. So I think it's a good starting point for that research. So I guess rather than belabor it any further, I'll make a motion to direct the staff to research options for a draft operating process to reinstate a peer jury program.
Thank you, Commissioner. And I don't know if you want to wait for a second or have your co-sponsor, Commissioner Barnett, speak to it if he wishes to. I'll leave that up to the two of you.
Greg has framed it up well. I just second them.
All right, we have a motion and a second, so I'll open up the discussion on the motion, which, as I understand, is to direct staff to explore options to bring back to the council for consideration as to what we might do. And just to frame it, I have no problem with having staff come back to us with information and options with respect to the cost, mechanics, who the leadership would be, and also what the participation would be. Because obviously this is something that it by necessity goes beyond Downers Grove and therefore should have full participation by others in Downers Grove, and that would be something I think we and the community deserves to hear more about too.
Not to interrupt, Mayor, but I didn't want to just read from the item that we submitted, which goes into a lot of that.
I know.
Other communities, other governmental bodies, whether they be school districts, what have you, are absolutely vital to this. It can't simply be, in my mind, just the Village of Downers Grove.
Sure.
We need partners in this, and I hope that they will be plenty.
Sure, and you and I have talked about it before. I just wanted to highlight that because I know you didn't want to read everything, but for the benefit of those at home. So I'll open up for discussion to the rest of the council.
I'll go ahead.
Commissioner White.
I will support going ahead with researching options on this. In the fall of 2017, I was personally very much involved trying to persuade the township to reinstate the program. And the budget that is attached to the new business item was the budget I personally gave to Mark Toman, the supervisor, as a possible way forward. Whether that budget will fit with what we want to do, we just don't know. We need to do the research.
Thank you, Commissioner.
I am on
Commissioner
board
Earl?
with researching this. I would like to learn more about it.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Wallace.
Thank you, Mayor. I appreciate Commissioner Jose and Commissioner Barnett humoring me in being very nitpicky with a little bit of the language and changing a few words here and there. From an educator perspective, I think that peer jury helps students with critical thinking and analyzing skills, which is essential in the real world. So I am in favor of researching, gathering more information to see how or if we could make this work in the village. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Waldeck.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm not opposed to peer jury, but the way it's been presented tonight, it's more of a directive with a predetermination of what the end result will be. Is peer jury. It's not a study of options, but a directive basically to reinstate peer jury. It's not a reinstatement because we never had it. That was done by the township. My first consideration is restorative justice and what we do with the young offenders. I mean, kids will be kids, and sometimes they do things that cross the line and are actually unlawful, and they shouldn't be treated as adults. But you need options, and I'm all for options. The new business item is kind of disappointed because I saw the township meeting, and boy, they really dumped it in a hurry in our laps, didn't they? And I wish we would have waited for this new business item so that they could finalize their decision rather than pointing the finger at us. That I think is unfortunate. So I oppose the directive, but what I am in favor of is a study with options. Options should be detailed as to their efficiency, their effectiveness, as well as their budgets. Sometimes when you look at effectiveness, and I suggest this for all the programs, I know there were comments in the material presented, but when you go back over records, sometimes things could be misleading. For example, and I'm okay with sharing this, I haven't driven in a long, long time. And if you look at my driving record, you'd see that my last ticket was in Wabeno, Wisconsin in the late 70s. And I would have...
That was you?
That was me. As a matter of fact...
I wondered who that was.
It's the only revenue the Benos get all year is when they get holiday traffic and they pull everybody over and give tickets. So, but to be perfectly honest, I've had a couple of violations, I guess, since then. And what happens is you plead guilty. By a certain date, you pay the fine. You behave yourself for, I forget whether it was 6 months or a year, and it goes away. So if you go back in the records, it looks like Wabeno, Wisconsin, but actually, so I am concerned about the, how records are put together, how statistics are put together. When you say, oh, they never offended again, well, is that because the record was destroyed somewhere along the line? I know there was a reference to that in the material, but I want to see the options, and I want to see that type of information. Also, at this time, I question the timing because we have a new police chief, and there's been some changes in being a great employee for a number of years, as most of us do. When we look at management, we see them do something, you say, boy, if I was in charge, I'd change. Well, we got a new police chief, and I'm sure somewhere along the line he wants to make changes. There has been some changes recently announced. During the day, the department is responsible for protecting, or during the evenings mostly, about 49,000 residents, and during the day it's probably more than double that. And so you have to maintain this while you're making changes. So I would say that I would like to see the study of options start being put together in approximately 60 days. Now I'm sure if there's an opportunity or the chief thinks that he can do so beforehand, he can start earlier, that's fine, but I'd rather give him the option to start in 60 days or immediately or sometime in between. He also has a new budget to address. As a matter of fact, so do we. We, as you mentioned, in the State of the Village, we've managed to not increase property taxes for operations for 7 years. And believe it or not, things do change. And we haven't even completed 2 months of our budget. As a matter of fact, we don't even have the full results of the first month of our budget. So when we read the new business material, I like it when it says, and this isn't the only time that says fiscal impact, it says NA. No, the question isn't NA, it's a question mark. It is a budget item. It will affect our budget. And I think we need to take a little bit of time to make sure that we are on track and that nothing drastic is going to have to happen before we start reinstating a new program, whatever that program is. So I'm concerned about the budget. Like I said, my focus is on the offenders and restorative justice. A lot of this budget and preparation that goes to preparing the peer jury. Fortunately, there's more jurors than there are offenders, but they all need training. And it bothers me, and I think it's important that the school system, the peer jurors need to be trained. They need to be educated. And I'm wondering why 80% of my taxes, property taxes approximately, go to education, and the school system's falling down on preparing students for civics, government process, things that peer jury, that students would pick up in peer jury. Why isn't the school system more involved? Why aren't they teaching these things? And why does it fall on the village government to take up the slack for the education? So I'd like to see the school system more involved in this process. So all in all, I don't know if I could vote for this motion as presented, because it doesn't really say that we're going to look and study options and possibly come up with a different idea. It just strictly says, we'll look at options, we'll do some studying, and then we're going to do a peer jury. That's the nuts and bolts of the motion. And I'd like to see it change to where we will look at and study options and present those results along with peer jury so that we can make an educated decision. Because it is important. Like I say, the first priority for me is the offenders and the restorative justice, and not necessarily a peer jury process. So, thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Jose?
Thank you, Mayor. First off, I'm happy to indulge Commissioner Wallace and her desire to put research up front in the motion, since that's actually what was asked for. And I'm pretty disappointed by the disappointment and the spin and, frankly, ignorance of what it is that was written. I'll go ahead and read from portions of it now. Asking staff to recommend improvements and suggest efficiencies that may be realized through the improvements, coordinate with nearby towns, and report back with regard to 7 numbered topics. And then we specifically say that we're looking for additional questions or metrics from colleagues and staff. At the end of the second paragraph, quote, similarly, we should also consider other diversion programs / actions that are available. So the idea that this was somehow predetermined to be one thing is counterfactual. With regard to the township, I had a conversation with some township officials that led me to believe that they weren't doing anything with it one way or the other. As for how long the project might take, I leave that to staff. I know from firsthand experience, having been up here for going on 5 years, that this staff can walk and chew gum at the same time. I also trust them to come back with the right answer and not necessarily just getting it done at the first available opportunity. So if it takes 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, I'm comfortable with that. But I also know that along with that will come a very thorough, researched, and very well-written report. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Well, let me put a fine point on this, maybe bring this to a close, because it is my expectation that staff will come back unbiased and tell us what may or may not work, what we have the capacity for, how this factors into our costs, the mechanics, and all of that will be greatly influenced by input from our police chief and his staff, as well as communications with other agencies within the beneficial area. And capacity will be a big key of it. The other thing that I'm very clear on, at least in my mind, is that this motion is not asking for us to decide anything, nor is it implementing anything. We are going to get information back that will allow us to make a decision one way or the other at a later point in time. But I'm certainly not prepared to do that now. I don't think any of us are, and we're certainly not trying to design a program as we sit up here. That would be impossible.
That's part of why we wrote it in English.
I'm glad you did. I would have preferred Latin, but English is fine. We can debate all this all night, but Commissioner Waldeck, please.
Okay.
I don't think there's anything to debate, quite frankly.
No, actually, I think there's a lot of agreement here. I think the only problem I had was the actual sentence, 2 sentences, which I looked at as a directive, but it seems that that everybody is not really looking at a directive, but more of a study. And I appreciate Commissioner Jose's comments and spirit in which it is intended. And I can certainly go along with that because, as I said, I'm nothing against peer jury, just gathering information, making the right decisions, and being able to defend our decision. And so I thank Commissioner Jose, and I can support moving forward with the complete study.
Thank you for the clarification. Any other questions or comments? If not, there's a motion and a second. Everyone has made a comment. Ask for a roll call, please.
Commissioner Jose?
Aye.
Commissioner Burnett?
Aye.
Commissioner Wallace?
Aye.
Commissioner Earl? Aye. Commissioner Waldeck?
Aye.
Commissioner White?
Aye.
Mayor Tully?
Aye. The decision is unanimous to look into this and get back to us. No, thank you. And obviously, if there's any questions, we're all available to answer them further. Very good. Well, thank you for that. And thanks to our colleagues for bringing forth the new business item. Look forward to seeing how that pans out. That brings us to item 14, which is the last item on our agenda tonight. I have a motion to adjourn, please.
Mayor Tully, I move that this council adjourn.
Second.
Have a roll call, please.
Commissioner White?
Aye.
Commissioner Waldeck?
Aye.
Commissioner Wallace?
Aye.
Commissioner Earl?
Aye.
Commissioner Jose?
Aye.
Commissioner Barnett?
Aye.
Mayor Tully?
Aye. Motion to adjourn has passed unanimously. We are adjourned. Thank you. And